And the first close that I'm going to talk about is the concession close. I picked this one because, a lot of the time when you get into a repartee in sales, and you get into that back and forth, people want to win, right? There's always that, if you've ever dealt with people, and everybody on here has, that people are competitive and they want to win. And it's a lot of things are banter is back and forth. People are battling with each other, trying to one up the other person. And in sales, it's good to let people win. If they can feel like they got over on you, but you walk away with the sale, who cares? So that's what the concession close is. Basically, what you do with the concession close is you tell the person, hey, if I reduce the price by X amount, will you buy today? Or you ask them, what's it going to take price-wise, or whatever the objection is, what's it going to take to get this deal to happen? And then you act like you fight real hard for it, and then you give it to them, and they feel like they had victory, and because they felt like they won, they buy. It's a pretty simple principle, but it's one that a lot of people walk past, and I think that they walk past it, really for no good reason. Oops, sorry, guys. Just realized why my eyes are bothering me because I'm wearing the wrong glasses for doing webinars. I have special computer glasses that I wear, actually 2 pairs, and I put them back on. Sorry about that. Anyhow, to go back to the concession close here, basically, it's just making the person feel like they won something, feel like they got something from you. And in that getting something from you, they end up buying. So that's really what it's about. And the example here says, if I reduce the price by 10%, will you take the product today? Well, I think you deserve a free case with this. Listen, I'm going to throw in a free tank of fuel. If you're ready now, I'll make sure I delivered it by the end of the day. So with a website, for example, you could say to the person something like, okay, well, I know you really want to have you really need an 8-page site, but, I'll throw it up. I'll give you a 10-page site if you buy today. Just as an example, like you could go into your closing technique, you could go into the close, and you've got a quote in your hand for a 10-page site, right? You could go into it saying, listen, I know you only needed an 8-page site, but I got you a quote for a 10-page site, and I'm going to give it to you for the price of an 8-page site. I'm throwing in 2 extra pages if you buy today. You could walk into the close saying that, and, it's not like, you're not really paying for more pages because, you're going to go usually with round numbers when it comes to sites. It comes to the number of pages. Not always at all. There's a lot of cases where it's paid, pricing is quoted out on a per page basis. But, if you have a situation, a common one with clients is, you're going to map out the site. You're always going to go mapping it high side, not low side. Make them feel like they won. Make them feel like they got a deal. That's basically how it works. Economic close. This one is basically where you focus on letting this person feel as though, okay, we'll just read this here. Focus on the overall economic situation, showing how the cost is less by considering certain factors. Show how buying a larger quantity gives volume discounts, reducing the unit cost. Show how buying the alternatives has hidden costs. Structure deals for them that will cost less overall, and talk about longer-term costs. This is extremely relevant to what we're doing here. And, when you're going into closes of websites, really any technology, but websites in particular, where you're going to be talking a lot about the purchase outside of the context of price, because, it's kind of like a car. I think websites are more analogous to a car than a lot of people realize. Like with a vehicle, you could go and buy an Audi, right? I advise you lease. I had one, lease them, don't buy them. You go and buy an Audi and your transmission goes in 3 or 4 years, and that could be $12,000 right down the road. Right now, it may be cheaper out of pocket up front than, I don't know, a Honda or something, right? Or a Toyota, but that Toyota is going to go for 500,000 miles worry-free. That Audi is going to have problems, and you're going to be hit by them, and it's going to be catastrophic if you buy it. So lease it. But anyway, that's how websites are, right? Website is like that too, because you can go and you could, buy a website from a shady person that, lives in a mom's basement down the road, right? You can go buy a site for, peanuts that way. Or you can go online and find a sketchy person on the other side of the world, buy a site from them. But what happens down the road is really what a website's all about. As upgrades come out, you end up having to pay to have it developed again, invest the time again. You end up having sites with bugs, glitches, obsolescence, viruses. So there's all these other factors that are much, much more important than just the initial cost of the site. So what the economic close is really talking about here is, and how it relates to us, because this does not directly relate in the text on the screen, is you're telling them, look, you're buying this because you're getting, we're an industrial strength company. I'm giving you an industrial strength solution. You're a business, you need a business class solution. You don't need, a hobbyist solution for a website for your business. Are you really going to, have your whole business's livelihood hinge upon that? Because if your site goes down, if it's a restaurant or your typical client, people can't find you, can't place orders, can't buy. Getting misinformation about where you're located, it can harm you in many, many, many ways. And then, of course, the problems amplify up when you talk about viruses and malware and ransomware and all these different types of technical, malicious things that can occur. Buying a solution from a company that, has their act together more or less, and does this for a living is a lot better option for businesses. If it wasn't, we'd probably have, I don't know, there'd probably still be windjammers on the ocean piloted by maniacs like Captain Ahab or something like that. People would be doing crazy things to save a buck that don't make any sense in a long-term way. Think about it, close. Okay, this is a closing technique that, this is important. This is a very important technique because it's used so often. It's basically a situation where you give them time to think about it and you leave them for just a little while, and then you come back and you basically read them, see if this person is ready to buy or not. This is done a lot with cars. But one of the things you guys should know about the auto industry, just off the top of my head, is a lot of those little rooms they bring you into are bugged and they're in the back listening to you, in case you guys didn't know that. And this is done, and this technique here, the think about it close, is very tied in with that strategy, because they sit in the room with you. They usually will give you a price. You'll haggle over it. They'll say, oh, well, let me go to my manager in the back and we'll, take a look at we'll try to find some new figures, right? Or something like that. And they leave and they listen to you and they figure out, is the wife the obstacle? Is the husband the obstacle? They go into it and they listen to you. Then they come back in and they work on the person that they're going to hammer. That's kind of what you're doing here. But think about it. Of course, you're not bugging phones and things like that or bugging rooms. What you're doing is you're going in and, you're giving them a few minutes to think about it, and then watching and seeing if this person, is ready to buy or not. And if you see that the person is ready to buy, then you can just work right into an assumptive close, right? You can walk in and start the paperwork. If you see this person isn't ready to buy, you need to pitch them again. Okay, so this is more, think about it, close. It's less of a closing technique than a general sales strategy of, sizing up your prospect. I know that I've been in many sales environments and different situations where I went through the entire pitch process and I knew at the end this person was really thinking about it. You could see the typical body language. They get quiet. Maybe they have their hand on the bottom of their face. They're looking down. They're thinking, right? They're internally, you can see the gears are spinning, but they're not giving off a lot. What to do in that situation, is really one of two things. Some people will try to hammer them, and typical person, you hammer them, they're just going to box up. But, some of your high pressure salespeople can do that. But typically, person's thinking about it like that. You back off a little bit, you let them finish their thoughts, and then you find out if they still have objections or if they're seriously going to go forward. People who are thinking about it that seriously, where you can see it, generally speaking, you know that this person is seriously thinking of buying, right? That's more often than not they're going to buy, or I should say, about almost 100% of the time they could be closed. If they're putting that much thought into buying, barring some huge crazy objection that they're, is buried somewhere, that person can be closed out, in the immediate future. So this is really a technique of handling the people when you encounter people like that, of just backing off, letting that person sort of, sit there and gather their thoughts, and then don't give them too much time, but give them enough time to think, 5 minutes or something, and then come back See if they're, read the body language, see if this person is like doing this, they're ready to, where's the contract? Or if they're doing this, they're still thinking. If they're still thinking, they could be just avoiding an objection. So, you begin to dig and probe for the objection. You begin to repitch them again. Ask them ask them if I could knock some, go into other closes at that point. You go and say, if I could knock 10% off, can you buy today? If I can do this, if I can do that, if I can sweeten the pot, dig for the objection. Big mistake, and this is a broad mistake. Big mistake a lot of folks make, tons of salespeople make, is that they do not look for the objections, right? They don't dig enough for them. They either operate on a preconception of what the objection is, or they never bother to even find out what it is. And if you looked at the stats of, top end closers, about 90% of them know you've got to find, isolate, and destroy the objection. You have to find out what it is. Is it financial? Is it a feature that they don't like? Is it something they view as missing? Is it technical? Is it time? Is it fear generally, which is in our business is actually huge. A lot of people have all kinds of fears of bad outcomes. Is it them being burnt in the past, fueling that? You have to dig and find out what the objection is. Then you can totally annihilate it, and then you can roar into a close. I think of objections like clogs and pipes, right? You want to knock them free, and then everything flows. That's pretty much how it works when, you're going out there. So think about it. Close is a good way to, give the person time to ruminate, find out what the objection is, then you can close the deal. So save the world close. Technique suggests that if they do what you ask, this will somehow lead to a significantly bigger gain being made. Use phrasing such as if you then to show casual connection. Examples: if you contribute now, you will be helping to save the lives of whales around the world. A small savings each day will give you the luxury of retirement. This is a convoluted seeming close the way they have put it up here, but it's pretty much the close that it's really about incrementalism. They put it up here in I don't know why they use these examples for this on this site, but basically it's all about incrementalism. Telling them, and I like to bring math into this close. Like I would tell them, okay, well, let's say what's your average, this is how I usually would start it. I'd say, what's the average cash selling price for a product? Like what is your average customer worth to you? If it's a restaurant, they might say $50, something like that. Or they might say $25, I don't know. But say they come up with $25 and I say, okay, well, I'm going to suggest to you, and tell me if I'm being reasonable, that if you get your site overhauled, and I'm not a liar, and I'm telling you that if we can do a good job, if we can get this site overhauled, I'm suggesting to you that you can get at least 2 extra sales a week. Bottom line, absolutely. If I do a crappy job and nothing works right, the bottom line, right, the low bar is to get 2 extra customers a week you weren't getting before. So that's $100 a week, $400 a month, and then just do the math on out and tell them, okay, so that means that, a year from now, you're going to have, $5,200 or whatever in your pocket for a website that only costs you a couple $1,000, or whatever the price is you're charging. Show them that this small thing they're doing is going to incrementally grow to epic proportions of benefit. And it's true. That's the thing about it. This is not like none of the closing techniques, I don't believe any closing technique is sleazy. You're just helping people take action. But this one, above all else, it's very logical. It's very rational. It's very straightforward. And it really can, if the person you're dealing with is somebody that's sane and rational and trusts you, it puts them in a box where they really should buy, right? I mean, just about anybody. If you show somebody the incremental overtime benefit of what they're doing in absolute failure figures, and it adds up to something enormous, a couple extra people coming in for lunch a week. Okay, it's only, $100 a week, let's say, but that adds up over time to enormous amounts of money on a yearly basis. And then what if those figures are wrong? What if it's 20 extra sales a week you get? Take that figure and just imagine, because it's probably not 0 and it's not 100. It's somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle here means that it could be, triple digits you're losing over getting this site done. So That's kind of what Save the World Close is about. It's about showing them that that small thing over time adds up to something really, really, really enormous. Next close, the rational close. Use logic and reason to persuade. Show them evidence that the product works well and that other customers were satisfied. Leverage science and irrefutable proof. Explain reasonably why buying is the right choice. With care, you can construct a powerful argument that uses a traditional and proven structure for persuasion. And this is probably the close that I have seen more people and more guys that are like just software developer type of people, just like coders, people I knew through the years who built sites, and they did nothing but work on programming and back-end stuff. They weren't salespeople. They weren't marketing people. They were not any of those things, yet they would outsell the pros. And the reason is this was the only closing technique that they had. They would just walk up to the client and tell them, I can do X, Y, and Z for you, and here's how I can do it, and here's why you should get it done. They would just literally lay out the total rational, logical stuff. And more often than not, this works because, you know, in the old days, we had very uninformed consumers, very, very uninformed business owners. People had lots of just total nonsense in their heads. I mean, they had everything from delusions of Microsoft front page and AOL and GeoCity sites and all kinds of just FUD, just nonsense in their heads about websites, right? Junk. And you would have to get past that. But as time has progressed, people have learned more and more and more, not just the importance of the internet, but they've learned about various technologies, and they see the value in code, and they see the value in stuff being done right. In the past, people just had no framework of reason to have a rational thought about it. So it was all, almost like people functioning on superstition or, anecdote or rumor, something like that, where you were dealing with people who had erratic beliefs. You don't as much anymore. I mean, of course, you'll run into people who have, really misinformed beliefs, but broadly speaking, people are getting up on this stuff, especially with smartphones. They're on them all the time. They understand what a quality app is versus something that's junk. So when you talk about the rational close, you're showing them rationally and logically why they need what you're selling and the benefits of it. Now, you can go through this, and there are some areas of our technology that are incredibly rational compared to what they're going to be able to get elsewhere. Website personalization is probably the number one thing that we have as a technology that can really, really take a website and bring it to the next level. And that's just, going through and setting it up so that, we have a different message being sent to a returning visitor as opposed to a first-time visitor, going through and setting up all those conditionals. And you can read about website personalization on your website, also inside the portal system. But that's a feature, for example. It's incredibly rational because it's going to help them. It's incredibly rational that they have a site that works on mobile and tablets and smartphones. It's incredibly rational that they have, the security features that our software has, that our sites have. Just all this stuff, and you can go through this list from A to Z right on your own websites. It's included right there. And showing them evidence is just about showing them successful sites, which you have in your portfolio, and showing them exactly how it works, walking them through the benefits of what they're getting, because they're getting something that is incredibly beneficial when you break it down at a rational level. Now they're using an example here. Well, now we've gone through all your needs, and the product meets those, right? And you say, yep. And they go, yep. The price is good. And they say, yep. And you say, now, is there anything else that would stop you from buying today? No. So let's do the paperwork, and you move into an assumptive close. That's one way to do it. What's important here when you draw the analogy across to us is that you make sure you cover all the bases. And just not to go off on too big of a tangent, but something I think a lot of folks don't do that I think you need to do before you get started is basically interview your prospect, interview your client, get an idea of what it is they think they need. Even if they tell you stuff that's totally wrong, it's going to give you the ability to sort of assess and judge their level of appreciation and, how informed this person is. You're going to get an idea of how, up on this subject this person is by basically asking them, saying, okay, so you've got a website right now. And usually they're going to say, yeah. And tell me about your site right now. Are you happy with it? Is it doing everything you think it should be doing? Are there areas of it that you're not so proud of? Areas of it that you're more happy with than others? Go through and just conduct a basic sort of probing question interview. You can do this in 2 minutes. I'm not saying spend a bunch of time here, but you can ask, a handful of questions and really get an idea of what this person needs to be told in a demo, right? Because then moving forward, when you know that, well, I think our website really stinks graphically, it's ugly, you'll hear that. Or you'll hear, I think our website needs social media integration, it has none. Or I wish we had a blog, we don't. You'll hear things like that. Well, everything that you hear when they're telling you, I wish we had a blog, they're telling you what you need to talk about, right? You need to rationally, using the fact, attack it. Say, we have an amazing blogging capability with our platform. You're going to be able to log in. You're going to be able to blog, put images in the blog, put videos in the blog, share it on social media, on and on and on. So you want to ham up, or talk a lot about the things that they want to hear. A lot of people make the mistake of not doing this basic thing of just making sure that you know what that person wants. And that's basically just asking those probing questions up front. And if you do it, you're going to be in a lot better shape down the road. So, price, promise, close. Let's check this one out. Promise a refund if they find the product elsewhere at a lower cost. The refund can be the whole price, and you take back the product. Now, I don't advise you do those two things, but we're going to go through this technique anyway because it's important. It is often the difference between the two prices, so they effectively get it at the lowest price. Sometimes for emphasis, it is double the difference, although they have to be particularly careful with this. You have to be particularly careful with this. Put boundaries on the offer. For example, only valid for other shops in town within the next 2 weeks. Internet offers not valid, right? This technique here, this kind of closing technique, these were really popular in, like, let's say the 1990s and prior, this technique. And I'll tell you how this relates to us, but from the 90s and prior, this technique was one that you saw used all the time. And you remember it was always on the television. If you can get this lower elsewhere, we'll give it to you for free. You used to see that all the time. And it would say, at the end, there'd be a guy who would talk real fast and say, offer subject to blah, 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 blah. You'd hear like this fast blur of, information spoken at 10 times humanly, readable or, comprehensible speed. And it would be off the air. The commercial's over, but they would throw this in there. This, I don't know, is a closing technique. The price promise close is more of a marketing technique and more of a technique to get somebody receptive to closing because it removes their fear. It will make them feel as though if I buy this and it doesn't work out, well, I can always go and get a refund on it. Now, obviously, with web development and websites, you can't give them a refund because they're paying, in essence, to commission something to be created, right? They're paying for the process of creating a site for them. They're not buying a product that you can stick back on the shelf. But you can do with this technique is you can make conditional promises that are relative to what you're offering. You could tell them something like, if you can find another company with our exact technology, and if you can find this person with this technology and they'll do an X, Y, and Z, I'll knock this price down to match theirs. I like to do price matching as opposed to price beating, and I never like to put myself out on a limb because these days, the reason this is bad, even though this can work, promising a refund if they find the product elsewhere at a lower cost, they'll go online and they'll find somebody in, I don't know, Bangladesh or on the other side of the world, somewhere where prices are cheaper, who will say, yeah, I'll build you a site for that amount of money. And then they'll come back and you'll tell them, no, I can't, I'm not giving you a refund there. I said we wouldn't do that. I said, that violates the terms. The person will get mad, go over to, whatever review site and start saying you lied. So, they'll slam you. People are like that nowadays. You deal with that problem a lot. People going on the internet and just absolutely slandering you everywhere they can, speak, and libeling you everywhere they can write if they feel in any way slighted or jaded. So that being said, this can work in the sense of if you have put boundaries on the offer that are really boxed in, and boundaries that are contingent upon things like the technology that we have that literally doesn't exist elsewhere, right? When you tell them, if you can find another web business that's within 60 miles of here that does websites with website personalization, with our level of security, with X, Y, and Z, if you can find anybody that does it, I'll match their price. I'm not going to beat their price, but I'll match it, because if they can do this, I guarantee you their price is going to be way higher than mine. That's how I would use this. I would, because it's the truth. In most cases, unless you guys are charging tremendous premiums, which you probably are and you're definitely entitled to, but in most cases, companies that offer features that are at the level of our technology, of our sites, they're charging a lot of money. They're not charging, really low rates. And what's important on the whole pricing thing, just to throw pricing, I'll speak on that for just a minute here. A lot of people don't understand the pricing is one of those things where you have overhead, right? Your overhead with this program and with us is peanuts. It's nothing, right? It's nothing. It really is. The overhead that people have in most businesses is tremendous. And that overhead directly goes to the bottom line of their prices, right? The customers have to pay that. You are able to beat almost anybody on price. Just about any and all of you here can beat people on price almost every time. Now, yeah, there are people out there that could beat you, right? Some, dude in basement could beat you in price. Yeah, but dude in basement, it doesn't have a marketing infrastructure. Dude in basement is a dude in basement, right? Probably, that's the old Peter pickup truck, right? Like you can get anything repaired on your house by a guy with a truck, but that's not a business. When it comes to businesses, you are going to be able to beat anyone out there because they have overheads of rent, employees, server costs, all kinds of costs that you don't have because you're in this program, because you're here with Rocket Driver. Now, when those folks or when you're up against them, doing a close, agreeing to match their price, right? And saying, hey, if they'll give you a product with, if they'll give you a website with these features and you're going to be able, if they'll give it to you for whatever price, we'll match it. Well, logically, they are not going to come back with a price that's anywhere close to yours. They're going to come back with $5,000, $10,000, whatever, much higher price tags. So that's just what sites cost. Generally speaking, site development from your average web development company is not cheap. It's not, it's not as expensive as it used to be, but it is not cheap. So you can use this. This is a technique. Never the best time close. I love this one. I love this one. People all the time procrastinate about things in sales and in life. You will run into situation after situation where people say, now is not the time. Now is not the time. It's not the time to buy a website. It's not the time to fix the roof. It's not a time to fix the gutters. It's not a time to fix the car. It's not a time for a new menu. They just procrastinate. It's very easy to get yourself really ensconced right into a mentality in business that's averse to change. Many people do it, and it is the death knell of many businesses. Many businesses go under precisely because of that. And anyway, this closing technique, the never the best time close, directly addresses it. And here's how it works. When people are procrastinating or dithering over whether they should buy now or buy later, show them that delaying will either get them no advantage or may even be to their disadvantage. Talk about what they will miss by not having it over the coming period. Give examples of people who waited for the best moment, which never came. This is really true. When you have a prospect and you're talking to them and it's like, okay, well, we're going to, let's just add up what happens if you wait. Right? Okay, you don't want to get your site done now. You're going to get it done in 6 months, a year. What happens in that year? Well, your website gets that many more people see it. Ugly, putrid, aging website. You don't get any clients. You don't get any SEO. You're not building up any content. You're not doing anything for your advantage of your business. You're literally, by delaying, you're putting yourself a year behind your competition. And you know what? You're not a year behind. You're already 3 or 4 years behind. So you're going to be, half a decade. What are you going to do? Be a decade behind online? show them that by delaying in this business, it's all about taking action and staying on top technologically through intelligently choosing a platform and then intelligently committing to the things necessary to maintain yourself online. It's not just about any one thing. It's about looking at this thing in terms of part of an ecosystem that you have to maintain. Like businesses all need to have a Google My Business. Businesses all need to, do all the things they need to do online to stay competitive. Website is a huge, huge part of that. It's really the nuclei, right? It's the atomic core of everything else. If they wait, if they just take time and go, well, I'll get it done in a year. Well, a year is going to pass. And in that year, they could have been blogging, working on getting themselves ranking. They could have been doing so many things that if they don't do it, they're putting themselves way, way, way behind. It's really, really not smart. So the never the best time close really is all about that. And here's an example. If you leave it until next year, you'll have one less year to enjoy it. That might be true for a motorboat or something like that. For a website, it's more like if you leave it until next year, you may not be in business the year after. Literally. The best time to buy is when you need it, which I'd say is now, wouldn't you? That's kind of corny, but, my friend spent his whole life looking for the perfect partner. I don't know if you want to say that. Probably not. It's a website. I don't know why they put that there. IQ Close. Technique. Imply that intelligent people make this purchase. This is particularly useful in selling technology where people may shy away from the complexity. The intelligence can also be associated just with doing a good deal. You can also imply that it'd be stupid not to buy. I don't like to imply to people that it'd be stupid not to buy, but I do like to, I like to have them come to that conclusion. It's really important when you're talking with people and you're talking to them about buying a website in particular that you go through this thing in the minutia, but you don't get caught in the minutia. And what I mean by that is just kind of like this presentation with you guys, right? I'm kind of breezing through these. We could get caught up in little fine points on any of these closing techniques, right? I could sit here and I could go into extraneous detail about things. That's not right. That's not informing you. Informing you is going through and making sure that you grasp the essence of these closing techniques, just the essence. You grasp what it's really all about, but we don't get caught up in the minutia. It's the same thing with a website. If you sit there and you sit somebody down who's not a tech person and you start going into features on the site, they're just going to glaze over, start yawning. And if they're a busy business person that's overworked, underpaid, and really struggling to get their company, to keep their company afloat, which is a lot of the time your best prospect, they're not going to even have the mental bandwidth to comprehend, a lot of the technical points. They don't care about it. So when it comes to, a solution and it comes to, showing them why this is a good solution, why this is something that's important, make sure that you always work on this from the perspective of looking to help them, but not thinking that they're stupid, never implying that. A lot of people, when it comes to buying sites and it comes to the technical side, they just don't have the mental bandwidth. Very smart people. I remember one time, one person I sold was a doctor, and he was a special type of doctor. He was like he was an ear, nose, and throat, but he did a special type of surgery, and he had invented his own tools. I think it was for correcting cleft palates or something like that. Anyway, he had his own surgical tools for doing this kind of stuff. And this guy, when I sold him, the questions he came out with about the website made me think, wow, this guy really doesn't get it. And he was a younger guy too. He was probably 35 or 40 at the time. And, I was younger than I am now, but I sold this guy a site and he was coming up with things like, oh, do you think in a few years we'll be able to run the internet on a radio? And, do you think there's going to be, he wanted to know if the website could play audio into his iPod, and just a whole bunch of stuff that was really wacky and off base. And I realized it's not that he's stupid. It's that this guy's busy 24/7 working on curing people in the OR. He does not have time to study web technology. Very smart person. So I never like to imply people are stupid. But with the IQ Close, and you want to associate your solution with intelligence, right? So what you want to do is stay positive. I always try to stay positive in your sales presentation. And the way to do it is to basically bring them along and let them know, show them the features, and don't get into the minutia of the feature, right? Like when you go to website personalization, tell them this is a latest state-of-the-art feature. Let them know these are the latest state-of-the-art features, and I sell people like you all the time because you seem like a smart guy, that kind of thing, or you seem like a smart lady, and don't be overly patronizing, but what you want to do is you want to make them, group them with intelligence, and then tell them, because you're smart, I know you're going to buy this, as opposed to, you're dumb if you don't buy, because that's nasty and it will not get you more sales. Anyhow, next closing techniques, the give, take, close. This one is kind of associated with technique that I've gone over in my other presentation that I did on closing. And I think that was the discount value customer close. I'm not certain right now off the top of my head, but the give take close is a close that I've used many, many times. Show them the site, get them all excited about it, and then threaten not to sell it to them, right? And, not you can't buy. It's more like you go through the presentation, you show them everything, you see that they're interested, then they're going, well, how much is this going to cost? Well, how much is this going to cost? They're at that point, right, where they want to know what they're going to pay for it. What you do is at that point, you tell them, well, before I go into that, let me see if I'm able to sell this to you, because we actually have a process here at the company where we qualify people before we sell to them, and the person will usually look at you like you're crazy, but they'll believe you. And if you go through it, if you make up your criteria, ask them how long they've been in this location, tell them we only sell to businesses that have been in the area for a while because we want a stable client base. You could do that. You could tell them, we're selling to people who agree to give us reviews, or anything you want thrown in there for a reason that you may not be able to sell to them. And what this does is this operates on the triggering of fear of loss and greed, right? Two big motivators to closing are fear of loss and greed. When people have that fear of loss, or when they are greed, they get overwhelmed with greed, they'll buy. And by showing them something they really like, and then giving them a very small little hurdle to leap over to be able to buy it, you make them feel special, and you trigger the fear of loss and greed that they don't want to lose this opportunity, and they'll jump and they'll snap and buy. I think of this almost like bass fishing. You throw the lure out there, you pop it on the surface, and the bass comes and takes a strike. And if you pull back and the bass misses its strike, they'll usually come in for another one. That's kind of basically how this sort of works. Just to draw a little analogy there, it's a technique that I've used very successfully through the years. I used it in different industries with different types of solutions, different services, and different products. But the give, take, close, boy, it really works. When you trigger that fear of loss and greed, one of the ways that, you can do this is you could say, well, I've got a quota of sites I can sell, and I have to see if the other person is going to cancel. Basically, I've oversold, and I'm supposed to only sell a certain amount per week. And, basically it's you or this other one. If I can get a firm commitment from you that you're going to buy, we can ink this deal and make it happen. But you see, go through it like that. And that's another way that you can really, really get them that way as well. Future close. If they're not really ready to close today, then close on a future date. Perhaps they want to think it over. Ask how much time they need. Ask if they may be ready to buy then. After thinking about this, they may be ready to close now. If not, do a calendar close so you can meet up next time. Now, this technique, the reason I put this in here, the reason I wanted to go over this one was I've heard so many times from people that there's no greenbacks and beebacks. And in most industries, there are not. In 90% of industries, it is the case that you get one shot at closing somebody, you get their attention one time, there are no greenbacks and beebacks. If you don't close them right then and there, you don't close them. But in this business, it's not true. In this business, there are greenbacks and beebacks. Many times you're going to wind up with situations and closes that drag out over several meetings that are not as straightforward. There's contingencies. There's all sorts of things that can weigh on a person's mind and keep them from buying. Maybe it's the hosting company. Maybe the person developing the site was a family member they have to break it to. Maybe they've got, something big going on in their business, and they're going to have more time to commit to the site in 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever. Maybe, there's all kinds of different situations. And again, this is not really a closing technique. This is more of a general principle. All right, the future close works by getting to thinking present about the future, hence bringing the future to now, so they can compress time and possibly close now. Basically, what you do is you have a situation where this person wants it right now, and they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to start the deal. They don't want to close right now, right? But they want it. So rather than setting an appointment in 6 months to follow up, what you can do is you could say, okay, it seems like you're really going to buy this. You know you need it. You like my solution and everything like that. If I can get you to put a 10% down payment, it can be something like this, 8% down payment, 7%. If I can get a commitment from you, I can come back and we can launch in 6 months. You can pay whatever, the other remainder of the balance. Basically getting them to financially commit. No, it's not ideal for you. You're not going to get paid right then and there, but if you can get them to commit some money, so it's an actual commitment, and you get them in the mind to compress time and look ahead and say, okay, yes, I want this. No, I don't want to lose this opportunity to get this site done. Yes, it's okay. I'll put, $60 down, $100, $250, whatever the price is, so that I know for sure in 6 months we're going to launch development. Many situations this doesn't apply to, but there are situations that it does. And overall, guys, in these presentations I'm giving, I just want to get you to think about different closing techniques. Think about how you're going to approach different sales, right? I'm not able to be there, and I'm not able to really guide you in your sales process, but I can help you in the sense of getting you to think about different techniques you're going to use, think about different ways you're going to approach closing. So that's really why I do these webinars. Anyhow, I've got 2 more closes to go through. The empathy close, and this close kind of related to the feel, felt, found close, right? Or the feel, felt, found technique. Basically, you empathize with the person, right? Empathize with them. Feel what they feel. Walk a mile in their shoes. Understand their situation completely. Then, when they are empathizing back, you decide like they would decide. You can even talk about yourself using I instead of you. Also empathize with the product you are selling and bring this into the equation. Be a matchmaker in bringing the great product to the worthy customer. Examples, I completely understand, and it makes so much sense to me to do this now. The solution works so well for me. Okay, how would I approach using this? How would I actually use this real world with websites? Basically, you sit down with the business owner and you say, look, I understand this business that you're in. I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from with your objections and with your fears and with your, reasons for not wanting to do this. But here's the thing. If I were in your shoes and I understand what your shoes feel like, because I've been there, I've walked a mile in them, what I would honestly do is I would buy this product. And here's why. It's not based upon me wanting to earn a commission here and stuff like that. But the fact is you really need to get a website for this business. You know it. I know it. It's something that needs to get done. The more you procrastinate on it, the bigger the problems are going to emerge. The whole thing, guys, is to jump in and to show them, to basically talk to them as though you really get what it is they're doing. And you really do get it. It's not like you're lying or dissembling or something like that. A lot of times people do just want somebody to work with them who understands, where they're coming from and understands what they're going through. And if you can be that person, you can get a lot more sales. And these are the cleanest sales you can possibly get, where you go in, you sit down, you understand a business model, you understand what's going on at the business, you probe, you talk, you get a picture of what's going on. And by go in, I don't mean physically go there. I mean have a demo where you talk to this person and learn about their business and learn about their circumstance, and then show them a solution that can legitimately really help them. If you can go in and you can do that, you can make a lot of sales. And that's really all the empathy close is. It's just understanding where they're coming from and telling them, look, here's why I think this could work. And throw it at them very honestly. Last but not least, the affordable close technique. Close out any objections they have about price by making sure they can afford it. This is cool. This is a really useful technique, you know, where you go in and you make sure, as you talk about the solution, you go through this whole process and make sure they can afford it, but also make sure that they can't afford not to get it. For example, if a website costs, let's say $2,500, right? They're a reasonable, cheap site. Let's say it's a site that you're getting from us for, I don't know, $400 or something like that. And you're turning around and you're flipping it, you're selling it for $2,500. In that situation where you're flipping a site like that, you know, you can go into that whole scenario and you can paint the picture of what the future is going to be like if they don't get this website, in terms of financial losses, in terms of, you know, the solution that they're going to lose out on, the customers they're going to lose out on. Anyhow, that's really it. Examples here, you know, how much per month can you afford? And, you know, just walking them through the whole, you know, the whole affordability of it, and showing them that this is something they can afford to do, that there's not really any risk here, there's not any really danger here, and that by not doing it, you're going to have losses. Anyhow, I'm going to wrap up the screen share here, and I'm going to take some questions from you guys, because I can see that you've got some. For the next few minutes, I'll do some questions from you guys. And I've got the dogs in the studio driving me crazy. I do have dogs, guys. I let them in here, and they bark sometimes. They're kind of crazy. Someday I'll get them on cam and show you guys. Let's see here. I'm going to answer some of the questions I've got. Okay, always get the objections and questions. Identify the objection, isolate the objection, overcome the objection, affirm, tie down, and close. That's excellent, Ed. You know what? I might even borrow that quote. Ed's saying, you know, basically, you need to find, isolate, and destroy the objection. That's a big, big part of sales in general, but it's a part of sales. Many people, many people, they get it wrong. They don't get the objections right, and they suffer for it. Let's see here. Any other questions, guys? Does anybody have any more? Feel free to fire away. Let's see here. I'll go to the next one. Is it true that with our sites, they will never need to purchase another one? Reason being that the tech is being updated daily. All we need to do is consistently upgrade their site, change content, images. Yes, Ed, with our site technology, the way it works, unlike a conventional site, is like you have a server out here and you install the technology underneath it. You install Linux as the operating system, MySQL, PHP, SQL database, and then you install a CMS system like WordPress, and then you build a website on top of WordPress. So it's a layer cake with many layers. And all those layers need to be managed, and it's managed on a per instance basis. It's not mass managed. With us, there's mass management where when we do, everything from antivirus to, server updates to just everything. It's a SaaS product. It's a cloud-based product. So the site features can just be rolled out and added, and they just appear out of nowhere like magic. But it's not magic. It's just that the site is based on a centralized cloud-based platform as opposed to an individual instance like with WordPress or Drupal or pretty much any other site where the site is sitting there, and unless a server admin updates it and stays on top of it, it's going to age and age and age, break down. It's going to get security problems. It's going to have all these issues emerge over time, as they always do. So it's aging from the day they get it. With us, it's not aging. It's really not. Virus definitions are updated that night. The antivirus is scanning. The server is scanning. Plugins are being worked on. Add-ons are being worked on. The platform's being updated. As HTML rolls forward and new versions of CSS and all that stuff, it's just going to be added and added and added. Oh, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Do you guys have any other questions? Feel free to fire away, guys. I've got 10 minutes here. I wanted to, wrap up with about 10 minutes just to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions and kind of get some feedback, hear what you guys would like some training on. Definitely want to make you guys happy and want to give you guys value for the time, because it's, it's important. Let's see, any other questions you guys have got? feel free to fire away. If not, I'm going to close it out here in a few. It's funny. Sometimes you guys are real chatterbugs and you ask me tons of questions. Other times there's nothing. And I have to like beg you guys to ask me questions. You know, you guys should be hammering me. You know, you can hammer me, but maybe the training has gotten better. You know, years ago when I did this, I used to get hammered with questions. I would have 100 questions and I actually would have less people on in 100 questions. Times change. Then again, we developed about 80 hours of video or something in the meantime, which definitely changes the equilibrium there a little bit. Let's see. Yes, I'm wearing my crazy Hawaiian shirt, or maybe it's not even Hawaiian. I don't know. Just a weird flower shirt my wife got me. I thought it'd be pretty cool. Kind of matches the studio. Got a little red in the background and black. And here I got that on the shirt too with some blue. Any other questions, guys? Fire away. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up here. What is a good way to determine suggested price for insight campaigns? You know, you're talking about, Ed, can you sort of inform me what you mean by insight campaigns? You know, maybe I'm the one that's misinformed here. Do you mean like a site, like determining price for a website or determining price for a service upon a website? Determining price for sites, I always play it by ear. You know, I always check out my local market. You know, if I've got a market and, you know, and people say this, there's truth and dishonesty to it too. One of the things is for many, many years, and it's still roughly true today, you would say, well, if you're selling to a client in New York City, you're going to charge them a lot more than a client in East Texas, for example, or, you know, in Kentucky or somewhere like that. For many years, that was really a standard. But however, nowadays, with national leads and the way we're going after customers all over the place and the nature of businesses, you can have a client that's in Kentucky that ends up being a way bigger client than most in New York. You really have to analyze the unique situation with that individual client. For pricing, you know, I always tell people, whatever is reasonable is what you should charge. Determining it is really pursuant to what kind of a business are you selling? Are you selling a plastic surgeon? Are you selling a banker? Are you selling a lawyer? Or are you selling a guy who runs a, you know, a small hot dog stand? Or, you know, a small electrician just getting started? Depending on your client, you have to charge what they can afford. If you're pitching prices that they can't afford, they can't buy. It's a condition. It's not something they can do anything about. So you always have to stay within that logical window of price. And determining what is logical, sometimes it's regional, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's very much national because you're going after clients all over the place, and it's always situational. I hope that answers that question. Let's see here. Okay, let's say let's see here. What is a good way? Okay, let's say a back to sale with many triggers and actions. Let's say a back to school sale where there are several actions created. Do I charge per action for a series of actions? What type of price point? Let's say $600 per sale average. You know what, Ed, now I know what Ed's talking about. Ed's talking about if you sell somebody a very complex site, right? Basically with internal features within the site that are going to have to be developed that you're going to have to pay for from us. You know, how do you sell that to the client? How do you bill it out? I build these things out in totality. I don't like to bill people out on a per line item basis necessarily. For example, if I'm selling somebody, you know, pages on site, I'm going to say 6 pages and here's the price, not price per page, but I'm going to charge you X for those 6 pages. Then if I'm going to sell you website personalization, I'm going to put that in there and say, okay, I'm charging you this for personalization, not for this personalization and that, because digging into pricing yourself out, that in that minutia can become really complicated. And then you're going to have the client wanting justification and rationalization of why this, why that, why this, why that, which you don't want to get into. You don't want to get into a line item billing back and forth with a client or with a prospect. I just give them, this is the price. Here are the things that are included, and this is what you owe us. Boom. That's it. Oh, you meant for upselling. Well, upselling, kind of the same thing. Figure out what they want, get a quote from us, and then see what they can afford. I have no real insights on that. I've upsold people, and I've gone back to upsell somebody and then wind up selling them a whole new site. I've gone back and tried to upsell people and gotten thrown out of people's offices. Upselling is one of those things where it's very play it by ear. I think upselling people is a great thing, and you absolutely should be doing it. Everybody should be going in for the kill when it comes to, upselling clients. When it comes to upselling them features within a website, modifications, consider the original price of the site, consider the time duration, consider the value. Give them a flat fee for what it's going to cost. And if you're going to do like seasonal refreshers, and one of the things that comes up a lot is you have businesses that want to change a menu. They want edits done. They want some modifications done seasonally, like, they want a Thanksgiving special on the homepage. They want a Christmas special on the homepage. They want a New Year's special. They want a summer special. When you have that kind of a situation going on, take the time to price it out and tell them, okay, price out one. And let's say the Christmas special, let's say, is going to be $300 in work, right? Or maybe it's $500 for this whole thing, whatever it is. Let them know this is going to be a standard fee for every one of the same thing. You can do it like that. After you've sold them one, let them know this is what it's going to cost periodically. But then you can tell them, but, what we can do for this to bring it down. Maybe you give them the option to pay for it all in bulk. Make sure you get a quote from us, but what you can do is you can actually go and you can create all of your specials in that one time period, right? So like in this example of building these out, we could create, say, 5 web pages for, their summer, winter, fall, all the seasons and, the holidays. We can build them all out and they can be sitting there waiting to be turned on or turned off. And you can let them know, okay, individually, these are going to cost, say, $300 or something. But if we do them all in one shot, maybe it's $1,000 to do all of them or something like that, But always get a quote from us. Never quote me. I'm not giving you pricing on this webinar because I don't know what those unique prices are. Anyhow, guys, that's going to wrap up today's webinar. It's great, as always, speaking with you guys. I look forward to chatting with you next week, and I look forward to conducting more webinars in the future. I think we may be adding a new session to the webinar schedule. You guys will absolutely be notified when that happens. And if so, we'll be in touch more often. Have a good one, guys. Get out there and sell, sell, sell.